Hello? Hello, can you read me? Can you read me? I am trying to contact agent 4209111 and... Okay, I think everything is clear. The connection should be like 720p, not 1080. We don't have enough money for a 1080. Hello, I am with the assassins, and we are going to try to figure out how to get you out of the Helix and take down Abstergo or something of the sort. What I need from you is to not do anything. You're just gonna do what you are going to be doing anyways, and we will just do everything like separate. And we might check in with you every now and then, but other than that, yeah, you don't do anything. You kind of just sit there and watch us do this. So yeah, well, it's been a bit, or it hasn't at all. I don't know. I'm writing this before I finish the next batch of games. In the last part, we reviewed the Desmond Trilogy, which is technically 5 games, but who am I to know how to count? I'm not going to go into a mini breakdown. You can go watch the last video, which I know is like over an hour long. Watch it. But I did first want to thank everyone who watched the last video and left a like and comment on it, which I will still almost always respond to you because who else is commenting? I want to thank everybody except the one person who disliked it, but I already know their information through means, and they're being dealt with as we speak. But I already went through my history with the series and how much it overall means to me, and to be honest, this retrospective is not only a way for me to play through these games once more or for the first time ever, it really shows Ubisoft's growth with the series and how they expand their storytelling and gameplay. Where we left off with Assassin's Creed 3, I was very intrigued, but also very concerned with the future of the series. It was the bookend of Desmond's storyline, but the modern day storyline didn't seem like it was stopping anytime soon. There was way more to be explored, and I hope we see it explored in a creative way that could easily replace the Desmond storyline. Who is the next protagonist? How will the story continue? Will Desmond still factor into any of this? Well, that's where we're at right now, with the Assassin's Creed Retrospective 2, the Helix Trilogy. I know I called it the Player Trilogy in the last video, but after playing through these games, it's kind of complicated. After meeting the one and only Nolan North at MegaCon, he said the original plan was to have Desmond learn something from each assassin and then in the end become the master assassin, Sly Cooper style. Take that with a grain of salt because although he worked firsthand on these games, he didn't write them, but if true, brings a cool insight on the original plan for the series. But we are left with a promising but also very troubling future. I don't know how Ubisoft is going to continue the storyline, but I guess we'll have to see the very next entry of the series. Arrgh, me matey, yo ho, my balls be itching from the scurvy. Now that we got the necessities out of the way, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag had a lot to live up to in my opinion. It wasn't just another entry, it had to continue a closed chapter. It had to start a new journey to worth its existence, essentially. Desmond is dead. What next? Well, this game is supposed to answer that, and although it didn't give all the answers, which is a good thing, it did leave me excited for the next game. A future aside, what did I feel about this game? Well, this game was not a game I had fond memories of, as I didn't have any memories of it. Yep, I essentially skipped out on Black Flag when it came out, not because I didn't care about it, but because I simply forgot. I played maybe about 10 or 15 minutes of it before a friend came over, and then I kind of just sat in my collection of games, never to be touched. I actually skipped out on Assassin's Creed for about 2 years until I tried Syndicate. How was Black Flag for essentially the first time? Well, it was amazing. Not the best Assassin's Creed game. Yeah, that's right, attack me. It was one hell of a fucking game. I love the story, I love the characters, I love the gameplay. Overall, it was just a super fun experience. There are some parts that left me annoyed or irritated about, which is why I say it's not the best in the series, but I still had a lot of fun with it. Controls were alright. It essentially took from Assassin's Creed 3 minus the horrible weapon wheel. It felt very Assassin's Creed. E will still counter and shift still runs and initiates climbs, which I found horrible in this game. I had this problem in Assassin's Creed 3 as well. I will hold shift to run, obviously. Since AC3 changed it to that shift equals running, and initiates climb, I found Edward to start climbing on everything around him when I didn't want him to. There were times where it literally ruined a chase or my stealth or whatever I was going for. It would constantly get in the way, and I wanted to strangle myself with the rope dart. I did also feel the parkour was severely slowed down. I mean, I don't expect Edward to be better than the predecessors as he wasn't a trained assassin. Connor wasn't either, but he grew up around trees, so that's enough of an excuse why he climbs well. But Edward's parkour was just not good. It was still enjoyable at times, and tree parkour still makes a return, but I found it just very slow. Speaking of slow, combat. I felt like they were trying to copy what they did with Connor and have cool and brutal killing animations, which were pretty cool, but it was also kinda too much. Like, Connor will gut you and wear your organs as a scarf, but it wouldn't halt the flow of the combat. There were many times where I had to wait for Edward to finish his mutilation of this poor English soldier before I was able to take control of him again. It got a little annoying at times, but it wasn't game breaking. Well, the game did break a lot. Like, a lot. I had this game crash on me multiple times throughout my playthrough, so yeah, that was fun. But although the combat was slow and the flow was all fucked up, it was the most responsive game we've ever gotten so far. There were still some ignored inputs or messed up counters, but not as much as the previous game. I felt like the E key actually did something. There were times I actually stayed and fight although I was close to death, because I actually felt the game wouldn't cheat and kill me. Kill streaks make a return but don't feel as good because, again, it takes 10 years to kill one enemy. At that point, just remove the kill streak if you're just gonna drag out the kill. But yeah, it doesn't feel as good as the previous games, but definitely feels a lot more responsive, so it evens out in a way. The missions is, well, it's a mixed bag. On one hand, you get hands down the best stealth in the series so far. Game heavily relies on stealth. That's a good thing, by the way, because it's Assassin's Creed. I found myself going out of my way to completing memories completely stealthily, even though I knew the combat was more responsive. Whether it was for 100% sync or I just felt like it, stealth got a major focus on this game and I loved every second of it. It also introduced a whistle mechanic, which I wish was in the previous titles. It had me planning out my tactic for a mission every single time rather than, well, let's see how far I go before being spotted. On the other hand, tailing missions. Everywhere. Jesus Christ, I get that they were in the previous games, but this was way too much. Whether it was follow this person so they could talk to you, or trail this person so they can lead you to their target, there was an abundance of trailing missions. Too many of them. I guess there has to be a price to pay for getting a focus on a good game mechanic to also slug through a terrible game mechanic, but I think this is where most people get the idea that Assassin's Creed is a walking simulator, because this game is 40% assassin stealth, 40% walking, and 20% boat. Of course, you assassinate targets per usual, and everything you've seen from the previous games are here, and there are some linear story missions, but I wish they just cut down on the trailing missions. Stealth, though, phenomenal. There was a lot of side content that if you wanted to, could take a few hours of your playtime. There's treasure maps you can follow, there's contracts you can do, there's even keys to collect that unlocks an armor set that which comes back from AC2 and Brotherhood. But for the first time, I didn't feel like going through the extra effort due to the game's size. It would take so much time just to sail to all the new islands and areas that I just didn't feel like doing. There is enough content to hold anyone over.
I thought I heard the old man
Naval missions make a return, and yeah, major glow up from the last game. It took basically everything from AC3 and then added on it. For starters, you can now leave the wheel and board other ships. The combat felt pretty much the same, just more weapons. You had your side cannons, you had your barrels to drop behind you, you had chain shots to shoot in front of you. The game spends a lot of time at sea though, like a shit ton of time. Basically, you better like it, because if not, oh boy. You have 4 speeds you can travel through, and you'll almost always be in travel speed because you have to sail far distances a lot. The naval combat is super fun, and even fighting bigger ships is fun. Whenever you're not getting obliterated by their mortars or 3 waves of cannons, it can be really challenging at times. I died many times in naval combat, but in the end, it's still a super fun time. You can upgrade your ship's armor, you can upgrade the weapons, some select cosmetics as well. Not enough to completely change the look of your ship, like the color of your hull, but enough to mildly satisfy you, like the sails. Weapon upgrades do help you a lot, especially the mortars. The game also somehow includes naval stealth. Yeah, you will find yourself having to stealth your way past enemy ships' views or blending in with them. It sounds stupid, and it kinda is, but it also adds some challenge to the game. Overall, naval missions got a massive upgrade, as this game basically is a pirate game. Naval was always going to be an important factor. The plot of this game is an interesting one, as it is half about pirates and half about assassins. In fact, I feel this game is the first Assassin's Creed game to have the assassins not at the forefront. They're still an important part of the game, don't get me wrong, but there are several sections where the assassins don't play a factor like at all. Yeah, there are Templars, but you're kind of after them in a pirate's point of view, not an assassin's point of view, if you catch my drift. Basically, on a voyage, your captain gets killed by an assassin before both ships sink. You and the assassins wash up on shore before you chase him down and kill him. So much for being a fucking assassin. You actually kill a lot of assassins in this game, and it kind of weakens the Brotherhood a lot, but just whatever. After looting him, you find a letter that says his presence is needed in Havana, but they won't recognize him by face, only clothes. So you take his clothes. You meet with the Templars, as it is revealed the assassin was a traitor who was going to give valuable information to the Templars. Turns out the Templars have a man called the Sage who knows the location of the observatory. You get paid, but Edward thinks it wasn't enough and decides to break the Sage out so he can find it and get its quote-unquote treasure he thinks lies there. He gets captured, but you break out very easily. You make your way to Nassau, which basically becomes a pirate haven at that point, and you meet Blackbeard himself. Blackbeard goes mad trying to find medicine or something, but he eventually dies in battle. You befriend a fellow pirate named Kid, who is revealed to be an assassin apprentice, and whose name is actually Mary. She tries to show you the way of the assassins, but you don't listen. She brings you to the assassins, but they all hate you, because you gave information to the Templars that will hurt them significantly, but you don't care because you did it for the money. The English eventually take back Nassau and give some pirates a deal that if they accept to give up piracy, they'll be granted a pardon. Some pirates accept, but some revolt. You partner with two pirates, but one betrays you and leaves you two stranded. You eventually escape, but not after leaving your friend who has gone mad. You eventually free the Sage with Mary, who then becomes a pirate himself. You help him get to the observatory where he shows you what the Templars are after, but he eventually betrays you and turns you in for a bounty. You spend some time in prison before escaping with the help of Mary's mentor assassin as you help him free Mary. Fortunately, she doesn't make it, but she believes in you to do what's right. You vow to help the assassins and fix the problems you caused. Although it may not grant you the name of assassin, you do it for the greater good, not for the glory. You kill the remaining targets, including the Sage. Throughout the game, you get glimpses of Edward's wife, Caroline, before he sets off on the first voyage. He writes to her before doing the final quests, and he gets the letter back saying that she unfortunately passed away, but they did have a daughter. You reunite with your daughter and sail away from your life as a pirate and assassin. The plot was really fucking good. Yeah, the pirate stuff kind of dragged a bit, but in hindsight, it was alright. The assassins really do take a backseat in this game and felt a little bit empty, but it wasn't terrible. They did feel a little bit weak in this game, as you kill a lot of assassins and you're not even an assassin, you're just some pirate. It was still engaging and left me wanting more of Edward, but ultimately satisfied with his ending and arc. Will I call it the best plot in the series? Probably not, but one of the best. I can see myself replaying this game for the plot, but it was also a really nice bookend for this chapter. Modern day stuff was weird. So this was my main concern. Desmond is dead. So where do we go from here? Well, we're in the eyes of an unnamed Abstergo employee, or a player. Basically, our job is to go into our animus, which is now widely used, and go through this period of Edward's life to find the observatory. Things go awry when the IT guy makes you start hacking other computers and looking for information to then give to Sean and Rebecca. The IT guy then forces you into the server room where you talk to Juno herself, but she doesn't take control over you because it's not time yet. I don't fucking know. The IT guy gets very angry though. Things then get weird when suddenly everyone is locked in their rooms because of an unknown hacker. The IT guy then breaks into your room and is revealed to be a modern day Sage reborn. He is angry that Juno has not possessed your body and he gets very mad, but he gets killed by security. Sean and Rebecca then reveal that the IT guy was just a guy on the inside that would give them information that we stole, but the IT guy, being a quote-unquote fanatic slash sage, tried to use us for Juno. So yeah, that happened. Not as interesting as the Desmond stuff, and left a lot to be desired. Definitely opened up more questions and hopefully hold our attention for the future, but I found it to be lacking compared to what we got before. For starters, I don't really like the whole player point of view. Desmond, we learned everything from him. He was essentially the audience throughout the series. But now that he's dead, we have a new character with no thoughts, no emotions. We have just no real emotional connection through them. When the sage threatens to blackmail us, is the player supposed to react the way I'm reacting? Because he, Sean, and Rebecca are acting like the player doesn't want to be helping them. But I do, because I know they're the good guys in the series. The silent character doesn't really work for a plot that has already been started. The player's thrown in 6 games in with no connection, and I don't feel for them. It feels like it was supposed to be like a meta thing, but I don't really care for it really. I'm excited to see where the plot with Juno, Sean, and Rebecca goes. Desmond's dad is seemingly missing, so I don't know if that's intentional or not, but I guess we'll see. Setting takes place over a wide area of the West Indies. You mainly go across Havana, Nassau, and Kingston, with various smaller islands to explore and the occasional farther land to explore for a mission or so. I will say this though, the map is fucking huge. Too big, in fact. Yes, we get to sail through the majority of the game, but I found myself fast traveling a lot because the game really expected me to sail through the entire map sometimes. It really dragged the game out, to be honest. But it was still fun to attack random ships while you were out to pass the time. When you were on land, the areas you explored felt very unique. The civilized town areas felt a lot like AC3 with the smaller buildings, but it fit for the time period very well. There were also a lot of like tropical islands as well, and it looked really good. It looked amazing, honestly. Some of the graphics hold up really well. I know I say this with almost every entry, but this game does really age well. It felt unique and looked amazing. I just thought the map was way too big. Our main protagonist this time around is Edward Kenway. If the Kenway sounds familiar, that's because he's the grandfather of Connor from the previous game and father of Hatham. I really liked Edward. He is so far in my top 3, which I know isn't saying a lot because we only played through 4 assassins, but I felt his character arc in this game was really good, with a satisfying end. The only thing that felt kinda off about him is that when we first take control of Edward, he already knows how to parkour and do the fucking leap of faith, and he's only a pirate. Like, the parkour I can accept, but the leap of faith, I thought that was an assassin thing. It just felt very out of place, like how the fuck is he this skilled in the assassin ways? Easily picks up the hidden blade and even kills multiple assassins in this game. It just makes the assassins look bad in a way. But as far as his arc, we see him grow as a man who is greedy and ambitious, who even puts what he thinks matters to him before his own wife, to a man who gives rather than takes. After losing many friends along the way, Edward starts to view life in a different way. He fucked over the assassins for some cash, but eventually goes back and tries to fix the wrongs he created, not to become an assassin, but because he feels it's what's right. He gives up everything for his daughter in the end, leaving behind his dreams of possible riches, because he now sees that there's more to life than fortune. The end left me super satisfied with Edward's story, and although it would be cool to see him again, I think this is a perfect ending for his character. I don't think I'd put him above Ezio, but he is definitely one of the greats. Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag had big boots to fill, and although it had mixed results, ultimately comes out on top. I was super worried about entering this title, but came out really enjoying the experience I just went through. It is surely one of the better AC games, and I can see why it's some people's favorite in the series. Although I don't think it's the best, I do really enjoy this one more than some previous entries. I'd probably rate this an 8 out of 10. If there weren't a lot of trailing missions and it focused on the assassins maybe a tad bit more, this game would be near perfect. It definitely had the best stealth than any other in the series, but had so much holding it back. In the end, it did feel more like a pirate game, but the assassin storyline was still more strong than weak. It was the perfect ending for Edward though, and I am excited to see what comes next. Assassin's Creed Rogue. Well, that just happened. Yeah, I don't really know what to say about this game other than I didn't like it, and it was bad. The idea was there. It could have been something great, but the execution was all wrong. I'm just explaining the prequels, aren't I? So you know the assassin trader you killed in Black Flag? Well, imagine that, but he doesn't die and he gets a more fledged out story. Not a fully fledged story. No. This game is anything but. This is so far the shortest Assassin's Creed game in the series at only 6 sequences. I literally beat this game in one sitting and I wasn't even planning on it. That's how short it was. Other than the ending and the idea of it, this game had nothing real to offer. It's almost like the opposite of Revelations. In Revelations, it had no real reason to exist, but it does anyway. It had nothing really to offer, but it was a good-ass game. In Rogue, there was a reason to exist and something to offer, but it was a bad game. I'm being a little too harsh on it, and who knows, it may not be the worst in the series, but so far in the retrospective, it is. But let's dive a little deeper. The controls are pretty much the exact same as Black Flag. The stealth is the same, in which it's still really good. The naval missions are the same with some small differences. Overall, nothing new. Just a lot of reused assets, which will become a common phrase in this section of the video. Just wait. I will say the derpiness in this game is almost as bad, if not worse than Black Flag. In the sense of Shay will climb everything that you don't want him to. You want to go straight? Well, too bad you're climbing a wall to your right. You want to jump? No. It really gets on your nerve and something they could have fixed from Black Flag, but let's face it, you really think they tried with this game? The combat, again, reused from Black Flag. Gameplay is essentially ripped from Black Flag completely. It borrows everything from the previous title except some things which we will get to. But yeah, if you play Black Flag, it's basically the same. The progression in which you unlock new weapons, though, was so stupid. In previous game, you earn new weapons through the plot of the game. Whether it was Leonardo building you a gun, which I know sounds really stupid, but it's actually really cool, or an assassin you giving you like sleeping darts or berserk darts. In this game, you just kinda get them. A random pop-up will come up after a mission and say, "You have unlocked the rope dart." After I just sailed a ship. Like, how? Why? I don't know. Here you go. It's probably because the plot is so rushed and glued together with some Elmer's glue, they couldn't give the time to introduce them, so they kind of just randomly unlock for you. All except for the dart rifle, which is essentially the dart tube you had in the last game, but instead of blowing, wink wink, you know what I'm saying? You're shooting it. Missions are again nothing new to Assassin's Creed, all for a few linear missions or incomplete missions, which are just regular missions, but the animus render distance is only like 5 feet, which looked really cool, but is all the same stuff. Kill people, stealth, trailing missions, which yeah, they are as bad as ever, but thankfully don't overstay their welcome. Trust me, they are still here and they are still as slow as ever, but they are not as prevalent as they were in Black Flag. There's still some side content including keys or totems for an armor set. They introduced that so late in the game, it was like, why bother? But if you want to do more than the plot, there is something to do. I will say the stealth missions are still as great as ever since they are still the same stealth system as Black Flag, so you can't really go wrong with that. Mission cutscenes, though, are so short. It's like there was a limit, like a cutscene cannot be over the length of 10 seconds long. Except for a select few, most cutscenes is just Shay walking in as like, what do we need to do? We need to do this. Okay. And then they just, that's it. It just ends. It just adds to the fuel that this game is so rushed and slapped together. Naval missions make a return, and as I think of it, maybe the last time we see them? I know Valhalla has a naval traversal, but I don't think there's any combat or extra gameplay to go with it. So unless any of the future games surprises me, this is the last game with naval-focused missions. And guess what? It's the same as Black Flag. I mean, what do you expect? They got it super right. You think they're gonna ruin it or change it? I mean, it wouldn't be past them. The naval missions and combat feel the same as before, so yeah, it's fun. All except for the last naval mission. That mission can burn in hell. If I see another man of war, I am going to make some toast in the bathtub. They did make your small gun thingy, I always forget what it's called, a lot faster. So for the smaller ships, you can literally hold shift and they will get obliterated. Mortars are still your best friends and ships still fire at you faster than you can do anything, so it's mostly the same. The exploding barrels that you dump behind you are replaced with fire, which, yeah, it's as useless as you may think. Even when the ship catches on fire, it literally does not do anything, so I kind of miss the exploding barrels. Naval stealth is still here, and it is still stupid yet fun. And not much else has changed as far as I can remember. Plot is where it gets interesting and boring at the same time. So this is super hyper fixated on the Assassins versus Templars, which is perfect. It is a sequel to Black Flag, but a prequel to Assassin's Creed 3. Play as Shay Patrick Cormac, an assassin with your assassin buddies. I guess to make his turn to the dark side even more reasonable, they made every assassin kind of an asshole. It's a little confusing as we're going to be on their side literally in the next game, and feels out of character for the few, which I'm about to get to. So you go to the Davenport homestead. Yes, that Davenport homestead, where you meet young Achilles. I'm being honest, it is really cool to see some returning faces other than the Ezio trilogy. We haven't really gotten that since. We go through a really bad tutorial that teaches us everything we already know. If this is your first time playing, previous games have done tutorials way better, and this also just feels useless for returning players. You go on missions with other assassins, including Adewale, the quartermaster from Black Flag, who at first I didn't want to assume that was him because I don't want to be a racist. Apparently he got some development in Freedom Cry, but that's not part of the retrospective, so sorry about that. They also mention who he sailed with, like Blackbeard, but they don't mention Edward, which I thought was a little weird. Is there some development I'm supposed to know or not? I don't know, but I'm not playing Freedom Cry. You kill some targets but feel some amount of guilt because the targets you killed were too sick or too incapable of fighting back. But your best friend, Liam, just says, yeah, well, do be like that sometimes. The Assassins and Templars in this game are after a box and a manuscript that holds information valuable to both sides. The box is filled with locations of what are believed to be pieces of Eden, but are proved to be not that. With some help from the $100 bill, you open the box after stealing it and the manuscript from Templars to reveal some of the locations. You go to one of them, that being Lisbon, and open the temple to retrieve this piece of Eden. But upon doing so, it disappears in your hand and an earthquake breaks out, devastating the whole area. Furious, you go back to the homestead to calmly ask if Achilles put his name in the goblet of fire.
Why did you put your name in that goblet of fire?
And you are escorted out. You break back in to steal the manuscript, but you are approached by your assassin brethren before escaping. You reach a dead end, and someone who you assume is Liam shoots you in your side, and you fall and land gracefully in the rocks below. Someone unknown rescues you, and you wake up in New York, where he recovers in the hands of an older couple. They give you some cool clothes that belong to their dead son, and some of the dead son's colleagues come to visit you, and you end up doing favors for them. Turns out they're Templars, and they know of your assassin past, but the man who saved you, Colonel George Monroe, begins to trust you. Unfortunately, Monroe dies in an attack from the assassinated French. Hey yo, fuck the French for real. Yeah, and fuck that mission where you saved that guy's wife from the French. Yeah, you thought I fucking forgot, but no, I fucking remember. You kill one of your old assassin brothers. Shortly after, you are inducted into the Templar Order by none other than Haytham Kenway. You explain to Haytham that the pieces of Eden are not actually pieces, but structures to hold pieces of the world together. But the assassins refuse to listen to him. So you go around taking out your brothers and sisters, including Adewale. You go far up to the ice caps, which has not melted yet, and try to stop Liam and Achilles from getting to what they believe is a piece of Eden. When you catch up, Achilles opens the structure to see that Shay was right this entire time. And you're there to say, yeah, I fucking told you so. Liam reveals that he didn't shoot you that day because he never misses, which he later does multiple times. But Achilles stops him from killing us. But in their struggle, they accidentally push over the piece, causing another earthquake. Chase after Liam and eventually kill him, in which he calls luck, but Shay says for the 1000th time that he makes his own luck. Like seriously, it's so fucking annoying. In every mission he says, I make my own luck. Like we fucking get it, you make your own luck. You escape to see Achilles and Haytham in a heated sword fight. But seeing how they are both in the next game, you break it up to keep the cannon secure. Haytham agrees to not kill Achilles as he can inform the other assassins that they were wrong about these structures. But he shoots him in the leg to, I guess, explain his cane, which I always thought was because he was old, but I guess it's because he used to be an adventurer like us. But he got his kneecap fucking shattered, and that's where the plot ends. Throughout the story, there are these incomplete sequences that are slowly being put together that sees Shay in France. We reunite with a $100 bill, and he helps us get into an exclusive party. We enter and kill a target. target we will soon be acquainted to in the next game, tying Unity and Rogue together in a neat little twist. I know I went into detail here, but to be honest, it is not as fun as it sounds. It's a really cool story that, if more time was put into it, it would have been a really cool game. It is still centered around the Assassin and Templar conflict. It is still set in an important time period. It could have been really cool, but instead, we got a rushed and slapped together story that can be beaten within a sitting. The cutscenes are super fast, like they couldn't be over a minute long. It's there to give a rundown and that's it. I really wish we could have gotten this fleshed out instead of a quick game just to push it out the door, but it's the best we got. As far as the out of character stuff, I did feel like Achilles felt a little bit out of character, but seeing how this is set before Assassin's Creed 3, maybe the events in this game is why he's so broken in the next game. As far as the other assassins being assholes, maybe the Homestead assassins are just the worst assassins ever, but it made no sense to make assassins look like the bad guys. Like, I get we're playing from a Templar's point of view, but it does feel awkward when in the next game we play as assassins again. Like, am I supposed to still hate the assassins then? I don't understand. It does add some weight to Assassin's Creed 3 where both sides are not perfect and both sides are not 100% correct. I don't know, it felt a little bit weird to me, but I feel like maybe after all this time and looking back on it, maybe it was just a bad section of the Brotherhood that needed to be taken out. Yeah, the story sounds really interesting, but it does not play out that way. If there was more time dedicated to it, it would have been so much better. The setting is actually kind of interesting. It is set around the North Atlantic during the 7 Years' War. Take a guess how long that war was. That being said, instead of reusing assets from Black Flag, it reuses assets from Assassin's Creed 3? Yeah, this somehow feels like Assassin's Creed 3 DLC, but with Black Flag mechanics. It's like a weird AC Frankenstein. So a lot of the setting is very familiar to 3, which I like 3, so I didn't mind it too much, but it just makes the game a little less unique. It also visually looks worse than Black Flag, even though it came out after, which I don't know how that works. Like, the graphics somehow got a downgrade, and the maps are a lot shorter and split up, like the older Assassin's Creed games. There's maybe like 2 or 3 maps to sail around rather than just one large map like Black Flag, which I don't know why they couldn't just do one large map and only make the civilization areas separate like they did before, but I'm guessing maybe they were just really far away or something. I don't fucking know. But yeah, the setting is not as unique as previous entries. You might even mistaken it as Assassin's Creed 3 DLC, which is what it feels like, even though that was 2 games ago. It just feels like a very weird downgrade in quality. Modern day section sucks in this game. So a virus attacks Abstergo Entertainment after you try to enter Shay's memory. There's a new girl named Violet who insults you anytime she gets. I think the game thought it will make her feel quirky and funny. However, it is in fact annoying and I hated every word that left her mouth. There is little to no modern day sections as this game is so short. But when we do, we have to repair servers. I know, it sounds so fun. Every time we do, we unlock a file that we aren't supposed to see, as Violet will go, "Well, that just happened," in a total MCU move.
They're behind me, aren't they?
We don't really get told why we're seeing Shay's memory instead of evacuating like everyone else. Get introduced to Juhani Otzoberg, I think that's how you pronounce it. Don't pin that on me, I don't fucking know. Who just tells us it's important to us. We'll tell you later. In the end, we send the details of Shay's memories to the assassins to show that they were weak or something. It is then revealed that Abstergo, Violet, Otso, and Melanie from the last game are Templars, which we already know because we played the other games and know what Abstergo really is from the very first game. But I guess it's supposed to be a shock to the player character whose reaction is, oh right, they don't fucking speak. They do, however, tell us we have seen a glimpse of the truth and give us a choice to join or die as it fades to black. So it feels very similar to Revelations, where nothing happens, but the end drops all this info on us that makes me want to play the next game instead. Like, yeah, I would have to play this game to maybe understand the next game if Otso and Violet return, which I only want to see one return, maybe both if they change the other character's personality. It also suffers from the same problem with the player just being a silent protagonist who has to be re-explained everything that we already know with literally no reaction. Like, what does this game want me to say? What? Abstergo's actually a front for the Templars? I didn't see that coming. Like, I don't know what Ubisoft is going for with this player character, but I guess we gotta wait and see what comes next. Our protagonist would actually be an antagonist usually, but we are in control of them for this game. Shay Patrick Cormac is an assassin turned Templar, which is the first in the series, sort of, and was pretty cool. It would have been a lot cooler if they fleshed it out, but instead we get a Lincoln Log built game, except Lincoln Logs are more stable. I hate that they wasted this character for this game. I'm really hoping we get a cameo in Unity or we get any more of his character, because if this is the only time we see him, I'm gonna be upset. His turn didn't feel out of nowhere. It felt justifies. To be honest, we are surrounded by the worst assassins in the history of assassins. They were just assholes, including Achilles, which didn't feel right. Like, yeah, he was tough on Connor, but I didn't see him as dismissive. I mean, thinking back, maybe a little bit, but it's part of the script, so I'm just gonna leave it there. Shay showed actual concern about the assassins. He grew a heavy conscience for killing those who couldn't fight back. He felt human. He stood up against both sides. He truly believes in what's right. Yeah, he's a Templar and kinda goes full evil in the last missions, but it feels justified. Like, I don't agree with him, but I see where you're coming from, kind of thing. He even shows remorse for killing his old assassin's friends. He has character. I just hate how it's wasted in this shit pool of a game. If anyone deserves a second game, or at least a second chance, it's him. Altair gets his time in Revelations. Edward got his proper emotional send-off. The only other character that would deserve a sequel is Connor, but again, to get a sequel in Assassin's Creed is very strict. I really hope we get to see him again, but after the lukewarm reception this game got, I wouldn't hold my breath. This game could have been so much more. For such a short game, I had a lot more to say about it because I really do think this game could have been amazing, but with so much holding it back, it just disappears in relevancy. Like, do people even think this game is a mainline game? Or do they put it next to Liberations and Freedom Cry? One is actually a full game and the other is a DLC turned standalone game. I really wanted to enjoy this, but I am glad I played it, even if I didn't like it. Someone in my chat when I streamed my playthrough said it was supposedly made in 8 months. If that's true, it explains a lot. I couldn't find anything that could back that up, so take it with a grain of salt. It was rushed, it was sloppily put together, and unfortunately will probably be forgotten in the grand scheme of things. I, with a heavy heart, will rate this game a 5 out of 10. So far, this is the first game in the retrospective to leave me with a bad taste in my mouth after I consumed it. I didn't know how I would feel about it when I played it, but it just wasn't a fun time. Let's just hope our next adventure can prove itself a better one. Oh, sorry, trying to connect back. I'm just checking in. Hey, it's this storyline. How's it going? You having fun? I hate to interrupt what you're doing to, let you know and remind you that this is happening. This is happening in the background of what you are doing. Just keep that in the back of your mind. That we are still here and this is a very important storyline that is happening at the same time as what you're doing. Just remember that this is happening and please don't forget that there is this storyline that's also connected to this video. So, yeah, go back to the Animus or Helix or whatever the fuck they call it. I don't know. Oh boy, oh boy. The real question. Is Assassin's Creed Unity good? That's a complicated question. It shouldn't be though, right? It's a yes or no answer. In some ways, I'd say yes. This game had some pretty good aspects to it and was pretty fun. In other ways, this game was the bane of my existence. I don't know how to exactly phrase my opinion here, but I am ultimately torn with this game. But after careful consideration, it was bleh. Yeah, this game was so promising and legit had something there, but there were far too many setbacks. When I say this game had everything there to be the best Assassin's Creed game since Assassin's Creed 2, I mean it. But the bag was fumbled so hard, it could be chalked up to so many different aspects. Was it the gameplay? Was it the story? Well, let's talk about it. The controls, for a lack of a better word, was the cancerous tumor in all of existence. It was bad. Not that it was designed to be bad, it changed things up in a way that I thought were actually good. And when it worked, it felt amazing. But most of the time when it didn't work, I was yelling at Arno like a child who just put a Lego up his fucking nose and I was a fucking babysitter. Essentially, they changed the parkour. No longer is it hold shift, which is actually really good. That was a major complaint I had with the older games, which caused me to climb at every little thing that I didn't want to. You had to hold shift and space to climb up, and hold shift and E to climb down. They actually added layers to the parkour and made it feel good. It was amazing. But then there were times where Arno just wouldn't do it. Like he would legitimately refuse to do your input. You would literally have to move, I shit you not, a centimeter to your right, or you would just have to find the correct way of climbing the building, which kind of takes away the control of the fucking game. Okay, well the parkour tried something new, but it's fucking broken. What about the stealth? Oh no. This is the worst stealth in the entire series so far. So, fun fact, they removed whistling. Yeah, the best addition to the stealth, and it's just gone. If an enemy is too far away, oh well, either use a Phantom Blade or try to approach. Both could alert a guard if they are looking. They also added a designated cover button, which sounds good, but again, doesn't work. I would press the cover button and Arno would either go to a completely different cover that I didn't intend to, or refuse to cover at all. Sometimes it took several presses for Arno to get the picture and cover. Why this is even a button is beyond my belief. I was content with just walking up to a cover spot and it just working, like it still does in this game. Like that's still a feature, but it's still a button. They added crouching in this game, which is fine, but the stealth in this game is just completely fucked. It feels like it's centered around a certain aspect of this game, the co-op. Certain abilities that were in the base game are now locked behind a skill tree. Shit that is literally so basic, like blending on a bench. Yes, you have to unlock the ability to sit down in this game. You have to unlock the ability to double assassinate and a separate ability to air double assassinate. This is shit that should be unlocked from the get-go. Why did they do this? Because they wanted to add some sort of progression in this game. Yet you can buy a level 5 weapon by sequence 4 if you do enough heist co-op missions. It is completely screwed and makes no sense. Eagle Vision also now has a cooldown, and you can only use it for a couple seconds. It is so stupid, and it can create some annoying gameplay moments, but I guess you can sprint while using it, so yay. I don't know, the gameplay just wasn't that great. It was just broken. The combat is very much like the gameplay, where it's not that great. The combat is still the same combat with some slight tweaks, but those tweaks break the entire system. So, guns in this game are actually a threat, and they can wipe out your entire health, even if you have the health upgrades. You might be saying, why not use the human shields that's been in the game since Assassin's Creed 3? Well, do I have news for you, bud? They removed it! Yeah, this game is like the king of removing the good features from the previous games. So the only way to avoid getting shot is to dodge it, which, as you guessed it, rarely works. If you are attacking another enemy, you'll be stuck in an attack animation, which won't let you dodge, and you'll be shot. If you do nothing and wait for when they're about to shoot, Arno will have dementia and forget that he's surrounded by enemy and put his fucking weapon away and sit there and get shot. Yes, this game made me wish I was the one who got shot. I had the glorious chance to get a high-level weapon thanks to the co-op, so I was able to cut through enemies like warm butter. But if you play this game like it was intended, I pray for you, because if you didn't upgrade your sword, you are going to suffer. The combat's pacing is fine, they cut down on the long kill animations, but with all the broken bullshit this game puts you through, it does feel like a damper on things. But with so much bantha poodoo shoved down your throat, it's just simply hard to have any fun with this. The missions themselves are fine. They would have been better if the game itself was not, I don't know, broken. Stealth missions suck because the stealth sucks. The combat missions feel broken because the combat's broken. Trailing missions are still as boring as ever, yet somehow also broken. Bro, I broke Elise in the trailing mission so much, and each time it was so fucking funny. One time she was supposed to be running away, but she somehow broke without me breaking her, and she just slowly walked to her destination. Assassination missions introduces assassination opportunities in which if you do a specific path, you can do a special animation, which was really cool. Like in the Notre Dame mission, or should I say Notre Dame, if you hide in the confessional box, the target will sit next to you and you can kill him there, with a special cutscene and everything. For each assassination mission, Arno will use the superhuman abilities that he has in this game somehow. I know he has eagle vision, but this shit is so stupid. It can see every opportunity around and know how many guards, how many entry points, and how many hiding spots there are. It's a good breakdown for the player though. It would be nice to see where those 5 or 10 entry points are though, instead of looking through every single crevice of the map. Essentially, if the gameplay was better, the missions would be better. Simple as that. At certain points, I just couldn't get the special assassinations anymore because the stealth is so awful and every guard and their mother has a gun and it just wasn't fun. But each mission complements the story in a way. So, no more naval missions, which makes sense, but they do introduce something in this game that literally feels like the entire game was built around: the co-op. And yes, it's fucking awesome. Of course, the botched gameplay holds it back a bit, but playing with friends does feel really fun, and you kind of just ignore the bullshit and experience it together. It brings out a whole new strategy in this game. You and your assassin buddies have to think out a route to go, and it brings out a whole new layer of the gameplay. If it was more defined and not buggy, it would have made this game so much more fun, and something I wish they kept in future titles. Assassin's Creed is not new to multiplayer, even though I never played them in the previous games as I don't even know if the servers are still up, but these missions were by far the highlight of the entire game. Me and my friend Bryce played through all of the missions, and yeah, they were really repetitive and feel slapped together at times, but it was just so much fun. If polished, it would have been amazing, but still one of the greatest additions in the series so far. The plot is what made me want to keep playing as I was actually invested in it, until like the midway point. So you take control of Arno Dorian, and your father gets killed by a Templar. If you played Rogue, you would know the killer to be Shay, but he does not appear in the game at all. Instead, you go through the game looking for the killers of Elise's father, which, like, okay, why not also have a side thing looking for Shay and maybe wanting to kill him? But nope, that is basically abandoned. Elise's father takes you in and you work for him, I think? He leaves to go to a party that Elise is going to be attending, your childhood friend and secret lover apparently. As he leaves, someone just misses him and says he urgently needs to read the note. After a failed chase, you decide to slide it under his office door and go kiss Elise. Unfortunately, Elise's dad gets killed by Templars, even though he is also a Templar. I know, Templar drama, am I right? They're so Gemini. Elise reveals that the note was to warn her father and tells you to leave. You then get arrested, I know, bad luck, as you are framed for the murder of Elise's father. You then meet Bellic, an assassin who eventually trains you when you reveal that you can use eagle vision to see hidden writing on the wall. He also tells you that your father was an assassin. After months of training in your cell, the revolution is just casually happening outside, so you and Bellic take the opportunity to escape. After you discover your involvement with Elise's father, you seek out the assassins as you are inducted into the Brotherhood. You are given an assassin mission where Bellic tells you to observe your surroundings, and that's where you gain your ability to see everything. Also, when you kill a target, you have another superpower that lets you see a glimpse of the past through their memories to reveal who else is involved in the killing. I don't remember if they ever explain why or how he can do that, but they quickly move on after that. Like, Arno is literally superhuman in this game. His kryptonite, however, is guns. God, what the fuck was that? You do go a bit rogue and kill a target you weren't assigned to, which puts you on thin ice with the Brotherhood, claiming that you are putting your personal revenge over the Creed. I wonder where he gets that from. After killing more and more targets, you find out that the Templars are going to kill Elise, so you go and save her. Now having been marked for death by the Templars, Arno brings her to the Brotherhood where everybody hates that. After, the Grand Master of the Assassins is murdered, seemingly to pin it on Elise. You soon find out that it was actually Bellic, as he believes that there cannot be peace within the Assassins and Templars, and you unfortunately have to take him out. Your main target at this point is Germain, the Templar Grand Master and also a sage. Why he doesn't look like a sage or really shows any sage traits like in Black Flag, I don't know. Maybe they forgot what a sage is for. At King Louis' execution, you have a chance to kill Germain, but refuse to let Elise die. She gets angry and leaves you. The Brotherhood also expel you for abandoning and his consistent defying of orders, so you drink. Elise finds you and the two of you continue your mission since things haven't been going well without you. You put your robes back on, which I don't know if Arno becomes an assassin again or just wears the robes for fun, but you have them on now, I guess. You find Germain, where it turns out he is in possession of the Sword of Eden. You might be wondering, what the fuck? At the beginning of the game, there is a prologue where it shows the Sword of Eden being put in a temple by a Templar the night the Templars quote-unquote disbanded. Obviously, it didn't last too long, and they don't even explain why Germain has it. It is literally absent for the entire game until the very last mission of the very last sequence. It's kinda stupid. So you proceed in a really bad boss fight with really broken mechanics where Germain kills Elise with an explosion from the Sword of Eden. It damages him though, and you assassinate him. He goes off on a monologue how he sees things because he is a sage, which makes me wonder if anyone else knew he was a sage, as it seems pretty important in Black Flag, but here no one seems to give a shit other than he's the Grand Master of the Templars. You take the Sword of Eden, you hide his skeletal remains in the catacombs with your best friend Napoleon, yeah, he's also in this game, and give a short monologue about the Creed, and then it just ends. I don't know if you're back in the Order or not. You literally don't see them ever again since you get kicked out. But yeah, the story was kind of sloppy. It was kind of interesting in the first half, but towards the end, it starts to derail and doesn't go anywhere. I have more questions than answers, and with the series' habit of giving a protagonist only one game, I know they're not going to expand this at all. The fact that this game just ends with no real conclusion also makes me feel kind of empty. Like, Rogue at least had an ending. This game kills Elise and Germain, but then just stops dead in its tracks. Like, the ending monologue is supposed to tie his arc up, but I don't know. I just felt disappointed by it. Like, I wish there was more, but what they gave was just a little short of whatever, I guess. Okay, so let's keep this quick like the game did. Modern day sections, non-existent. Yep, you never step out of the Animus as you are a Helix player. Helix being a program powered by Abstergo and the Animus. Whether or not you're the same player from Black Flag and Rogue is unclear, as they don't explain anything. They introduce a new character, an assassin named Bishop, with the help of her British companion. Why this couldn't be Rebecca and Sean is beyond me, as they are not in the game at all. She mentions Rebecca in a co-op mission, but no sighting of those two or Desmond's dad, who has been absent since AC3. Basically, you play through the prologue through the Helix, where you are intercepted by Bishop as she invites you into the Assassins and make you play through the life of Arno to see where the remains of Germain's body is, as Abstergo is looking for it since he is a sage. The reason why they're looking for his body is they're trying to recreate a sage, but they need the DNA. Once it's revealed to be in the catacombs, Bishop just says the remains are probably too fragile or damaged to be observed anyways. Yep, in the sloppy ending, the sloppy modern day storyline just chalks it up to, well, it should be fine. Again, no defining characteristics of our character as we don't even control him now. Just watching a few cutscenes. There are Helix jump points where you have to avoid being detected by Abstergo's servers or something, so you go through these mini sections. One takes you through Paris in World War II, I guess to have an excuse to have you climb the Eiffel Tower. The modern day section is just a major letdown, as it doesn't really further the plot. They don't even explain the Sword of Eden at all. Like, it's a whole new artifact, and no one cares. It just adds more question, like, where's Juno? Or are we the same player as before? Where's literally any of the characters from the previous games? I guess we just gotta wait till Syndicate. The setting is Paris during the French Revolution, and the game looks very pretty when it's loaded in. Yeah, this game has a major render distance problem. It seems they prioritized big crowds up close, but didn't think of looking, I don't know, a couple feet in front of me. This causes some major pop-in issues, where buildings will look hideous and people will literally pop into existence. Other than some rendering and texture issues, the game does look really good. They really used the new lighting system and the ability to load more high-rendered textures due to a leap in console generations. This was the first game on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, the first time the series jumped from a generation, as the entire series at this point has been released on PS3 and Xbox 360. The setting does feel really unique, and the colors are really eye-popping, even through something as ugly as a public revolution. If they focus less on the gigantic crowds and focus more on the overall setting, I think it would have looked much prettier, but it still looks fantastic even to this day. We play as Arno this time around, and he's pretty cool. I did really enjoy him and felt almost like a French Ezio. Obviously, no one can top Ezio, but Arno felt like a genuine person, and none of his actions felt out of left field. He makes mistakes and some bad decisions, but felt very realistic. I will say, when the story slowed down, so does his arc, and it does get confusing. Like, when he gets expelled, it is interesting, but when he dons the robes again, is he back in the Assassins? I don't know. They kind of act like the last two memories and sequences just didn't matter. It felt like I missed something, but in fact, it was just the game not explaining anything. I do believe Arno deserves a second game, and there's still a story to be told. His arc did not feel complete by the end of this game, and it felt he still needed to do more and become a more noble assassin. You unlock the Master Assassin robes, which is like, is he back? I don't fucking know. There's no answers. So although his story may have fallen flat, he was still a very interesting character that I would love to see again. This game is a mess. Not as much as it used to be, but still after all this time, the game is broken, and it sucks because it had the potential to be the best. If the story was more fine-tuned, if the gameplay and stealth worked, if they didn't remove good mechanics from the previous games, it could have been really good. But it's not. But why? What happened? I feel like since Rogue and Unity were made at the same time, both games suffered dramatically. Also at this time, AC games were on a yearly release. Yeah, I forgot to mention, ever since Assassin's Creed 2, the series has been on a yearly release schedule. It makes sense why Brotherhood and Revelations felt like a stepped up DLC, but releasing two games at once in such a short time span must have really hindered both products. Rogue felt really rushed, as they probably just wanted to squeeze it out for last gen, and Unity felt ultimately broken. I remember Unity being severely slammed upon its release, and now that I finally played it, I can see why. Except, I can see what it was trying to be, but it was held back from greatness from a broken gameplay and lackluster story. If the co-op didn't exist, this game would have sucked even more for me. Co-op is still broken, but it was at least fun with a friend. You're playing with a random, maybe not as fun, but who knows. The game itself had some fun moments, but ultimately just couldn't live up to what it should have been. That's why I really regret to rank it a 5 out of 10. I think the only saving grace was the co-op in the first half of the story. Upon completion of the game, I felt so empty and sort of whatever about the product I just consumed. I never like feeling bummed out during the credits. I just didn't feel a sense of completion or even confusion. I just felt nothing. After the last two lackluster games, I felt concerned about this one. I remember playing it as a kid, but back then, I felt nothing special. And after feeling little to nothing with the last two games, I was starting to dread this one because the possibility of feeling the same way kept growing. And well, yeah, it was alright. It wasn't the best, but it wasn't the worst. They definitely improved the game from Unity. It feels much more like a finished product. but the story is just what left me feeling bleh. First and foremost, was it fun? Yeah, I would say so. It doesn't really add much to the series except one thing that breaks the game, and I will get to that in 1 second. It felt more of a let's fix this shit from Unity kind of deal. It isn't centered around a multiplayer feature like Unity. Yeah, things are locked like in Unity, but it felt more bearable in this game, and the single player doesn't lack because of a co-op side feature. It just felt like damage control mostly. The controls are improved from the last game. The updated parkour is still here, just a little bit more defined and less finicky, and some little changes like the sliding under crevices mechanic not needing the E key anymore. Eagle Vision is back to the way it was, no more cooldowns or short durations, and I am happy to announce that the whistling is back, folks. Yeah, that's right. I know. It even has its own key, which even lets you whistle out of cover, and even on ledges now. It really adds that spark back into the stealth that still feels a little finicky. I also forgot to mention in Unity that there is a new feature in the stealth, that when a guard spots you and you leave his line of sight, it shows a silhouette of where they last saw you. Of course, it didn't really help in Unity, but it does help in this game with the added stealth mechanics back. Evie's main focus, in fact, is stealth, while Jacob is more confrontational, so there is a lot of stealth-focused missions, and they don't feel awful. I still use Jacob for stealth as I love the stealth approach, although I did also brute my way through parts of the game. The game really does let you pick the way you want to approach. You can easily stealth your way through, or just go in swinging. It's truly up to you. And with a more polished gameplay feeling, it felt good either way. The skill tree is back with much more to unlock. They kind of fool with you with the double assassination being locked behind a skill tree, but it is quickly revealed to be a part of the tutorial and forces you to unlock it first, as if they knew that it was a stupid decision in the first place. There are certain skills for stealth and certain for combat, and both Evie and Jacob have their own. I ended up kind of just using the same skills for both, as I use both the same, except when I really needed to deviate. Now, a new addition to the game basically breaks the parkour in this game by essentially removing it completely. That addition is the grappling hook. Look up at a ledge and you can grapple up like a slower Batman. I literally grappled up to fucking viewpoints, skipping the entire climbing section completely. You might be wondering if it's like a late addition or some locked late in the skill tree. Nope, it is an early addition. Yep, you can go from one ledge to another without having to climb down and back up. It feels so out of place and makes climbing such a waste of time in an Assassin's Creed game. Like, I get it, the Arkham games and the AC games share some similarities, but like, come on. You can also drive horse carriages and hijack them like it's an industrial aerial GTA, and it felt fine. There are some skill upgrades to make it better, but it just felt fine. All in all, the controls and gameplay feel like a damage control for Unity, rather than adding new additions, and the new additions they did add breaks the game. It felt fun to play though, and I really did enjoy the grappling hook, although I did feel like I was cheating while using it, because I technically was, but it was fun, and most importantly, it worked. The controls weren't the only thing tweaked and fixed from the previous game. The combat feels a whole lot different. First off, you can now dodge bullets easier. I don't really remember if they do the same amount of damage anymore because I was actually able to dodge them and much easier in this game, as it's just the press of an F key. And we can dodge bullet and pay respects. But what about the flow? Well, imagine the normal combat from before, but in like fast forward mode. This game's combat is super fast. You literally look like the Flash, beating them senselessly without giving them a chance to breathe. They might be able to get like a hit in before you go back to killing them. High level weapons, however, are locked behind your own level. That's right, no more buying a high level weapon by sequence 3, you actually have to earn it, which is good. But I won't lie, I did feel a little bit bummed out that I couldn't cheat the system like in Unity. It actually had me think about picking fights or just sending some of your gang members after them, as they don't cost anything anymore, and sometimes they're just really good distraction, and they will literally kill everyone for you sometimes. The counter button is still the same and mostly works. It wouldn't be an Assassin's Creed game if it didn't ignore your counter button at least a few times. The throwing knives are back though. No more sleep darts or phantom blades or any other substitute of the knives. They are back and they felt great as always. There was a weird glitch though, that I would aim the knife and I would click and Evie or Jacob would go through the motion of throwing it, but then nothing happens. Like, the game just acts like you didn't throw it, even though you did the whole animation. Like, I just saw Evie throw something, but nothing happens. I know for some people it actually ruined their stealth, but for me, I was actually able to catch it before I actually went on to my next stealth move, but it's still a weird glitch that still persists to this day. You also still have a gun that is not locked behind a skill tree, you just have it. The combat felt fine, it felt fun, it felt not broken, just maybe a little too fast. Like, slow down. Slow down. The missions themselves felt the same, but the progression of them were a bit different. Now that you have two different characters to choose from, each sequence will have a mission tree for Jacob, one for Evie, and one for either of the two that you choose. They would usually both come together in the end, but it made the story feel just a bit jumbled up as I didn't know what order to do them in. The icons on the map is also different. It's not just a mission icon. There's a Jacob symbol, Evie symbol, or a different symbol to indicate that it can be done either or. Assassination opportunities are back, like Jacob hiding as a body to get to his target undetected, which is cool. I thought that was one of the better parts of Unity. Except in this game, since the stealth works and I have better weapons, like the throwing knives, it actually let me do them without losing my sanity. So even though the order in which you do them is whichever you choose and in turn makes the story feel jumbled, the missions felt fun to play again, as they actually worked. The story of the game is where it kinda trips up for me. There is no weight to the story, and I felt completely empty while doing it. Essentially, London is under the control of the Templar Grand Master Crawford Starrick. Who is he? He is evil British man with an evil British mustache? Yeah, that's basically the extent of his character throughout. In the game, you play as two assassins instead of one. A pair of twins named Jacob and Evie Fry, who decide to go against their Brotherhood's order and free London because the assassins kinda just left. Only one assassin really stays, which is Henry Green, who you help free London by doing the standard assassin missions and daily missions and shit like that. After each sequence, we get like a quick cutscene of like Starrick being evil, and then we just continue. Almost like it's reminding us that he exists, as we don't interact with him at all until the very last mission. Basically, Jacob and Evie go off on their separate missions, which half of Evie's is just cleaning up the mess Jacob made. It all very suddenly blows up, where before the last mission, Jacob and Evie say that after this mission, they will go their separate ways, which I know you already predicted the ending, so did I, but let's pretend like we're emotionally invested in this, okay? Through the game, both the twins and the Templars are after the location of the Shroud, which is revealed to be under the Buckingham Palace. Starrick steals the key from us that we stole from a Templar a few sequences ago, and gets to the Shroud first. After a quick boss fight, we kill Starrick, put the Shroud back because we're good people. The twins make up and Evie and Henry kiss, as that was kind of built out throughout the game, but yeah. And yeah, that was it. The summary is rather short because there was nothing of real importance to go over, to be honest. As much as I hate to say it, the story was a chore to get through. Not only was there no real order of some of the missions, so there was no clear path for the story to go, it just wasn't interesting. Sure, it played well, but my investment was at an all-time low in this game. Unity was a mess, and sure, the ending was fumbled, but it at least had somewhat of an interesting story. This campaign just left me bored and uninterested. And that sucks, because this is the only AC game so far where I did not care for the story one bit. Modern day storyline is basically the same as before, little to none. Again, you don't play it, you only watch it in a string of cutscenes that interrupt their animus story. So basically, Bishop contacts you again to have you play through the Helix and find the Shroud's location, the new piece of Eden. I mean, at least the new piece of Eden is important, unlike the Sword of Eden, which is just not mentioned ever. We are reintroduced to Sean and Rebecca as they proceed to look for the Shroud before us, or something, I don't fucking know. They fail and proceed to wait for us to finish the campaign. It is revealed that Otso and Violet from Rogue are also looking for the Shroud, along with a new Templar named Isabel Ardant. After we finish the Fry story, we watch Sean and Rebecca and a master assassin, Galena, go to the Shroud's location. But somehow, the Templars found it first. They proceed to fight. Rebecca gets shot and injured. Sean kills Isabel, much for that new addition, and Galena kills Otso. Where's Melanie through all this? Who fucking knows? She's just gone now. No mention of her whatsoever. Violet, unfortunately, does not die and leaves with the Shroud, where it is revealed that the Shroud is being used to help the cloning of a sage. It is also revealed that Violet is working with Juno, instead of the player from Black Flag and Rogue. So, yeah, cool story, I guess. But again, we're just watching it. I am pretty certain that the Initiate from Unity and Syndicate is not the same character as the player from Black Flag and Rogue. Not that it's exactly easy to tell with the lack of character, but with the introduction of Layla in Origins, I think this idea of being a silent, faceless being, just watching stuff, is just going to be abandoned. Which sucks because this is what I feared. The modern day storyline has suffered from a lack of direction in favor of just being a period game, which to some is fine, but it abandons the integration of both stories from the original games. The modern day and the Helix stories feel so disconnected, and it sucks because it feels like this is just going to be abandoned in the next game. Like I mentioned before, we play as two characters in this game, Jacob and Evie Fry, and they're fine. The chemistry is what you expect. They fight a lot, they joke a lot, they feel like siblings. They do have a minor gameplay difference as Evie is more stealth focused while Jacob is more confrontational, but is only really present with like 3 skills locked to the appropriate character. But I felt like there was no real arc here. They pretty much feel the same throughout the entire game until like the last sequence where we get that split between them that gets resolved within the final mission. There was just a lack of story for them, but they themselves were fine. I wouldn't mind seeing them again, but it feels really unlikely. I like their bickering back and forth, but I did feel like their fight in the last sequence felt very out of nowhere. Like, yeah, Jacob was making a mess throughout the entire game, but it's only now that it's a problem. Couldn't have introduced the conflict a few sequences earlier to make the resolution more earned? The story was lacking, so the characters suffered from it. But they were fine on their own, I guess. The setting of the game takes place in London in the late 1800s. Lots of factories, lots of fog, and just a very bleak setting if I'm being honest. Graphics still look pretty good, but do feel a little bit different from Unity. I don't know if they just used a different lighting or if it's the textures, but Unity looked a lot better. The render distance problem is fixed a bit, whether it's hidden by fog or there's less popping with instead things fading into existence instead. It does look a lot better than the popping textures in Unity. Everything is very darker and very ugly, but I think that's what they were going for. This isn't Italy or France or the Caribbean. This is a very bleak industrial setting full of child labor and depression. It does feel unique to its own as other AC games do, but I wouldn't call it my favorite. Darker tone does make it a cool setting, but I feel like the textures got a minor downgrade. I don't know if it was getting too modern, which I wouldn't say so because I think a modern day AC game would be awesome, but it just felt alright. Like, it's not the best, but it's not the worst. It's just like a middle ground of alright. In the end, Syndicate fell short of greatness. Not because it played bad, but because the story had no direction. The way they made you do the missions and where you can do it in any order you like made the direction feel so all over the place. Like, I didn't know what took place where. Like, was this supposed to happen at the same time? By the end of the sequence where it all comes together, it just doesn't come together. The story was so hard to get through. I just wanted the game to end so I can get this video out of the way. And I don't like that. This was the first Assassin's Creed game where I didn't care about the story. Even in Rogue and Unity, where I didn't like those games, I was at least somewhat invested in the story. But in this game, the story just wasn't it. The gameplay was fine, I guess, but it felt more like course correction than adding something new. Yeah, it felt like Assassin's Creed, but it also just felt empty. There was nothing there. There was nothing to hold my attention over. I can see why I stopped playing this as a kid. I just felt nothing for it. Because of that, I'm also going to give this a 5 out of 10. It's not a bad game. It's just an empty one. There was no real substance to it, I guess. There was nothing that made me go, oh yeah, this is worth my time. Yeah, Jacob and Evie were fine. Yeah, the gameplay was fine, but the story just holds it back. Hell, this is the first time the main villain felt like nothing. We don't interact with him head to head with our characters until the very end of the game, the very last mission, in fact. So the conflict felt very disconnected. Jacob and Evie will do something, and then Crawford Starrick will get angry somewhere far away. I don't know. I didn't like it. It didn't feel like anything special, I guess, and it just sucks. The last 3 games, when I finished it, I just felt nothing after. No sense of completion, no sense of anything. I would rate it higher, like a 6 out of 10, but other than the script, I don't remember the story at all. It's just so forgettable. And because it leaves no real impact, that's why I'm rating it so low. In the end, this section of games suffered the way I predicted. A lack of direction and just throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks. Black Flag was a promising start, but with each entry after just felt bland or felt flat. Rogue felt like a rushed product, Unity was broken with a lackluster ending, and Syndicate was just bland. Maybe the lukewarm response to Syndicate is why the series went through a reboot, and we'll soon get into if it worked or if it's what the series really needed. To be honest, I think what the games needed was just more time. At this point, and basically since Assassin's Creed 2, the series has been on a yearly release schedule. It was fine with Brotherhood and Revelations, as that kinda just felt like DLC to Ezio. No, literally, Brotherhood originated as DLC, which explains a lot. AC3 and 4 felt unique enough to themselves though, and were really good games. But I think as the games got bigger and more ambitious, the lack of development time may have screwed them over. Unity would have been solid with a lacking ending if the game worked. But with 2 games releasing at the same time with a yearly release schedule, no wonder it was broken. So did the games need to change its entire identity? No, I don't think so. I think abandoning the yearly release schedule would have at least helped them, but let's give the final 3 games a chance and see if it helped the series at all. The games had more time to flesh out a great story, to iron out the gameplay. I think we wouldn't have needed a reboot. I feel let down from this section of games. And it sucks seeing how good Assassin's Creed used to be, but it's not over yet. And that's going to be it for the Assassin's Creed Retrospective Part 2. I hope you enjoyed the video. I did not enjoy editing it, but it's still fun to make these videos no matter what. Do you agree with my opinion? Sound off in the comments below. Just don't bully me, I will cry. I will start streaming next week, starting with Assassin's Creed Origins, and hopefully we can get those 3 games out of the way and as soon as possible before Assassin's Creed Mirage comes out this October. But how do you feel about the Assassin's Creed games so far? Do you feel like they fell off around the same time I did? Around like Rogue and Unity? Thank you for everybody who left some love in the last video. That's probably one of the best reactions this channel has gotten in the past 10 years. That's pretty cool. And again, just like last time, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and possibly comment. And I will see you next time. Goodbye. Alright, massive breakthrough. Massive breakthrough. Alright, so we understand who is behind all of this. And the culprit is Uncle Vinny. Uncle Vinny is behind all of this. He is the Grand Master of the Templars, which is also Abstergo. I mean, you should already know this, but we're going to remind you that Abstergo is the Templars. Oh shit, they're interrupting the connection. They are interrupting the connection. Uncle Vinny is coming. If your age is on the clock, run. I repeat, if your age is on the clock, get the fuck out of here. You want to go straight? Well, too bad. You're gay. I will say the derpiness of the game. Oh my god, I just hit the mic. The progression in which you unlock new weapons, though, was so fucking retarded. I'm not using that word. It's spam risk. I'm gonna answer it. Hello? So you go around taking out your brother's sisters. Although I did brute my way out of some. Which is only really present with like 3 locked skills to the appropriate character. So we, Uncle Vinny is coming. I mean, he was coming to something. He got arrested for it. Alright, Uncle Vinny is coming if you're under the age of 12.